And here we go. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
It should be working.
It always works when we try before, but when it's on, then it doesn't work.
Exactly, then
Okay,
it doesn't
yes,
want to
it's
work.
coming.
How about
Good,
now?
we can see it now.
All right, excellent. So let me put it in presentation mode as well. There we go. So welcome everyone to another IWWOF Talks Learning webinar. For those of you who don't know us, we are International Working Women of Finland. And today's agenda is first, of course, introductions. My name is Alina Välinen and I will be your host today. My co-host Gwen will introduce herself later and also our speakers. Then we will have the presentation and discussion part, and at the end, question and answers part in case you have more questions after the discussion. Just a few words about International Working Women of Finland. We are a community of internationally minded women living in Finland, but not only, who co-create a more integrated, diverse and inclusive Finnish society by empowering, enriching and enabling opportunities for all. We started in 2019, so recently we celebrated 2 years of existence. And this series of webinars, IWWOF Talks Learning, started this spring. And we, as you can guess, we talk about learning, higher education, university life, and employability of international talents in Finland. And we have guests from academia, from corporate education, learning, all kinds of career backgrounds. For example, this autumn, we've already had a webinar on online presence, networking, and building relationships with our guest speaker, Lukumanu Idrisu, which you can see on our YouTube channel if you missed it. Today we have immigrant youth and educational achievements. Next week Tuesday, we will have student well-being today and in the future. And on the 30th, another Tuesday, we will have a recruitment company joining us to present, to introduce themselves and what they do. We don't have yet a name and a description, a title and description for the webinar, so I haven't added anything here. That's all from me. I will stop sharing and we'll give the stage to Gwen.
Thank you, Alina, and welcome everybody. Very happy to be here. I'm Gwen Beauvoir, a member of the IWWOF Learning Team and researcher at the University of Helsinki. And I'm very happy to present our two speakers today for our upcoming webinar on immigrant youth and educational achievement. And we are lucky to have two speakers today, which is great because even more information and even more discussion. And first we have Crystal Ospel, who is a researcher in expertise in African migration and an advocate for immigrants' well-being. Crystal holds a PhD in social and public policy from the University of Helsinki. And her research interests are very relevant for our topic today, obviously. It includes immigrants' well-being, migration governance, integration policy, and also micro-business development in Africa and also Africa regional integration. And she's presently the Vice Chair of FIC Africa and the coordinator of the Youth Educational Performance Program. And that offers mentorship and tutoring to immigrant youth in Finland. And she's also a volunteer for us at IWWOF. And our second speaker will be Patient Wajala, or Pesi, who is a construction project manager with expertise in sustainability. And she holds a master's degree in construction project management from Kenya. And she is at the moment pursuing a master in engineering in sustainable technology from HAG here in Finland. and she currently works at R&D engineer on PECO. And Patience is working currently with Crystal on immigrants' well-being, especially youth and their education. And she advocates for female education in STEM. You probably know what it stands for: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we're also lucky to have Pessy as a volunteer also at IWWOF. So ladies, the floor is yours.
Okay, just 1 minute. Let me show my face, then I share my slide. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my slides. Give me 1 second and share my screen. And let me know if you can see. Let's see what I get here. My screen on?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it. Maybe you can put it on presentation mode, but otherwise we can see it.
Yeah, I think I should be able to do that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm still not able to get to this presentation. Okay, yeah, I think that's it.
Well, we can see it, so I guess you can.
I'm going to use it this way. It seems okay. Let's see. That's I think that's it. Yes. Okay. And I have a second screen where I so you can still see my face while I talk.
We can't see you, but we can hear you and we can see the slides.
Okay, so let's take it this way. So I talk with this slide and just showing this way. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to this talk. It's a talk, so it's a bit informal. And today I and Pessy, that is my colleague, will be talking about immigrant youth and educational achievements, but we'll be focusing on perspective that is not tutoring. Tutoring is the most common perspective to educational performance. But today we want to talk about something else, and also at the end, provide some practical guides for parents. The objectives of the talk today is, one, to bring recent research findings to the knowledge of parents. Normally, such research findings are published in journals, which are not always accessible to the public. We also want to call parents' attention to other factors that affect educational performance. We want to publicize also organizations that are working to support migrant youth education in Finland and in Helsinki. So in case mothers, they need support, they know where to go. And most importantly, we want to share best practices with concerned parents. We must also exchange tips with those of you that are present in this talk, and want to hear from you what has worked for you, from what has worked with you, and what not work. So we could all benefit from the talk. We divided the talk into 4 parts. I will be taking the gap, the first part, the second and the third part. The first part, we talk about the gap, which is the gap, the reason why we are here. And then we talk about the picture, which how things are as a test now in Finland and regarding youth education, migrant youth educational performance. And also I will give some scientific explanation for why we have the situation we have now. And then the fourth part, my colleague will take the fourth part, in which we give practical, helpful intervention strategies that we could use. So the gap. The gap, what I call the gap really is those findings from several studies that have been carried out concerning immigrants' youth education, some of them in Finland, but also others in other European countries or Nordic countries also. And what this research have found out is that immigrant youth and their parents, they have very good attitude towards education. They have positive attitude towards education, and also they have very high aspirations. Now, with positive attitude and high aspirations, you will expect that this will lead to excellent performance in education for the immigrant youths. However, research has established, and I mean, this is something that has been established in different countries, that immigrant students, they perform they have below average performance in schools. They experience the highest dropout rates compared to native students. And also those that manage to get into universities, very few of them enroll in STEM program. And STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So at this stage, I want to take the first poll. And I want to find out from those of you that are listening, do you agree with these findings that immigrant youths have below average educational performance in Finnish schools? And I asked this question also to some group of students, but first let me hear what people think about. Is the poll out? Can we quickly take the poll that is on the screen? You could click yes, no, don't know, or other.
Yes, people are answering at the moment. So
okay.
click on polls and people are answering.
Okay.
At the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Gwen. My mouse was frozen for some reason. I think we have the answers. Can you see them?
Yes, overwhelmingly 78% agree with this statement. And surprisingly also, a couple of weeks ago, I had a focus group discussion with 13 youths, immigrant youths in Helsinki. And when I asked them the same question, first of all, they said they were not aware of that research, but they all agreed. I mean, the youths were for ages 9 to 18. They were in two batches, so ages 9 to 12 and 13 to 18 years old. They all agreed with the statement that is true, and they were quite sober when they said it, that it's true that immigrant youths don't do very well in school. But also, maybe later on we'll get into a discussion. Now we really want to know from those that disagree, the reason for disagreeing. So please remind me, we'll come back to that question at the end when we are having a discussion. So I'll move on with that agreement. Over 78% agree, and from my experience also, I think it's difficult for Finnish youths. But this is the picture, this is what research have established. It has established that the difference in the school performance of immigrant youth and native Finns and native students is larger in Finland than in other Nordic and OECD countries. And that means that things are worse for immigrant students in Finland than in other countries. And after reading about this research, the different research that's been done, I've come to, from my own perspective, I have come to establish, at least in my own opinion, that immigrant youth don't drop out. They drop out or they sass out. And it's kind of like a cute statement, but I mean, the point really is that dropout just doesn't happen because they are immigrant kids. So it's either they've become overburdened with so much challenges that they can't cope anymore. They kind of, just wither like plants that don't get enough water, so they kind of wither out of school. They can't cope anymore, so they leave the school. Or they also the possibility that when they start out, it's like they see the challenges in school and they feel, okay, we can't solve this, but then we're going to protest against it. And the dad says they become deviants and then they walk out of school. And before I bring this picture, this general picture of immigrant students not doing very well, before I bring it closer, I just want to quickly remind us of the education structure in Finland. And it's important because when I bring the picture closer, I will use age group to expatiate on the situation on the ground. Like we know 7 to 16 years old, that is compulsory education. So they are in the basic education. And after having the basic education, the student can either move to matriculation exam. The student can either move to matriculation exam, which is the LUCIO, to go general upper secondary school to LUCIO, or if they don't want to go to university, then they could move on to vocational institutions where they will get trade qualification, and that will enable them to start working. They can get other vocational qualification, but then they are eligible to start working in whatever trades they learn at a vocational institution. Why those that decide to go to LUCIO, to upper secondary school, could then advance to have the bachelor's degrees in the universities. Now, at 17 to 16, they are still in compulsory education. So by the time they are at the stage where they need to take the decisions to go either to upper secondary school that will lead them to masters, they are already getting to 18 years old and over 19, between 18 and 19, then they should be graduating to university. And this is important in the experiences of the students and school. Their age group is important. But before I show what the research have found out concerning the ages of the kids and how it relates to their educational performance, let me hear from your experience, those that are parents. What do you think from your experience or in your opinion, at which age group do you think migrant students experience the most difficulties? While you're answering the poll, from my experience, I have a daughter that is 70 years old. I raised her in Finland from when she was 3, we came in for studies. And from my experience, she's now 17. And yeah, I can see more difficulties. She's having more difficulties in her school. In her schooling at the age, started from the age of 14, 15, 16, and now she's 17. Do we have a response? Yes, 15 to 17, yeah. And yes, and this is what the research has shown. Yeah, and I mean, the way you responded also, that is exactly what the research says, is that the early years, 7 to 14 years old, education normally runs smoothly for migrant youths. They have very low dropout rates and they are at par with native-born students. And if we also think as parents also, or as uncles or mentors, we know at this age, 7 to 14, the child is still very much under the control of the mom. The child is still very young, still having compulsory education anyway. So you must be in school. The child must still be in school. This is the age where the influence of the parents can be seen, or the influence of other adults can be seen to be stronger on the kids, and maybe their own opinions, and they've not started forming strong opinions about what they think or what they want to do and what they don't want to do. So by the time they are moving on from they tend they are moving on from the periscolo, or they're getting to the higher grades than periscolo, the basic education. Then they are turning 14, 15, and getting to 18 years old. I call this the slippery slope, because this is when the problems actually starts a lot. And this age grading, even when I had the focus group discussion, it was quite clear, because the students that were 9 to 12 years old, when I asked them about school, everything was fine in school. They loved school, they liked their teachers, their friends. Some of them loved the food. They liked going to school. They were quite sad they said they were quite unhappy about the pandemic time when they had to stay back at home. And well, I was surprised, but school was all fun to them, 9 to 12 years old. And when I had the second discussion with the youths that were 13 to 17 years old, the picture was very different. They didn't like school. Most of them did not like school. All of them were very happy during the pandemic time, because they said they did not have to go to school. They liked learning from home. The whole idea of schooling to them at that age was already different. I mean, I could say the difference. And the big question, like, what happens from 14 to 15 years old? And one thing is that at this stage, they are teenagers, right? So they are more aware of the social context of discrimination. They're already aware of themselves as the other, and they're beginning to see themselves as immigrants, and identifying with the social context of what is happening, what they are discussing about immigrants in the society where they live, the economic opportunities that immigrants, they begin to identify themselves with things that are happening around them at this age. And this also contributes to their educational performance. Now, I know most of us, we don't have kids at this other age, but then, like, for example, my daughter is 17, or even if you have kids that are 15, we expect them to get into university. But research has shown that that is where the biggest problem, that is where it is most noticeable. And I call that stage the entrapment stage. And this is when they're supposed to transit, to move from Lukio to the university. At this stage, dropout rate increases when they're moving from upper secondary school to university. And the migrant youth is more likely to drop out from education or from training. So it's not just a matter about moving to university or following the paths that will take them to bachelor's degree, but also those that move on to vocational training could also drop out. And the risk for them to drop out is 4 to 5 times higher than native Finnish youth, which is quite high. And the one important thing I want to point out during this stage is that is the first time they are taking the step, their baby step towards adulthood. And there are two very important factors that I thought that I should highlight in this place, because at this stage, it is not really just the grade of the students that is really important. As immigrant youths, two things that have been shown to be really important, their imagination are called into play, and also future-oriented agency. And by imagination, it means that how well can they see beyond what is happening in the society? And then the future-oriented agency, how much do they feel that they have control over what their future will become? For example, if they feel like, if they look around and they see things are so, they identify with the community of immigrants, and then when they look around, they feel like things are really negative concerning immigrant situation in the society. If they are not able to imagine a future outside of the reality that they are seeing, then they can get discouraged at this age, and then it affects even though they've had high aspiration and had good attitude towards school, at this age they begin to feel other pressure that affects their decision to either continue their education or to stop and just try to make do with whatever comes up. I think before the next poll, let me just quickly go over the what are the scientific explanations, because I think at this point, one will want to know, why do we have this kind of situation? There are quite a number of scientific explanations for this, but because today we are not focusing on tutoring, I decided to pick just two. So today I'll be looking at attitude and also the aspiration of the youths. In the case of the attitude of the youth and how it affects the achievements at the last stage of their schooling, the very important thing is the context. But the context now is not just about the real context. It's also about the context that they can envision, like I explained earlier on. And in the real context, it concerns their perception of the socio-political treatment of immigrants in their society. And then they now base their educational strategy on it. So if, for example, if immigrants are not getting employed, then it doesn't really make so much sense when you get to 18, 21 to start thinking about going to spend so many years in school so that you can study, and then you come out and you know that you're not going to get a job, because according to what is happening in that socio-political context, from your perspective, you could do all the courses you want to do, but you still won't get employment. So this affects their attitude at that stage where they are taking the baby steps into adulthood, and affects why the reality is that they drop out at that stage, or they don't pay so much attention to education anymore. And then also the situation of youth employment in their country, in the society where they live, the education system, the opportunities that the institution has provided for them, like after schooling. So what's next? Are they going to leave school and get into employment? Are they going to be able to meet their economic needs if they go to school? Like when I had the focus group, I asked the children, like, okay, they said what they want to be. Most of them, what do you want to be in future? You know, they gave a list of different things that they would like: engineer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a YouTuber, I would like to be an actress, a list of different things they want to do. And then I asked them, immediately after that question, I asked them, okay, so how many of you want to be rich? So everybody raised up their hands, like, yeah, I want to be rich, I want to be very rich. Why? They said all the things they want to get with the money they want to have. And then I asked them, okay, so now you said what you want to be. Do you think this profession you've chosen, you think it could give you as much money as you want? And you could see the expression and in their faces, you know, like they just become like, okay, no, I'm not sure. And they were not giving suggestions of different and profession that they would like to take, that they think they could make more money from. And the point is that something that really affects the attitude of the kids really is at that very young age is what economic benefits could they get from if they should go to school, for example, if they should graduate, what does it bring to them? And what are the opportunities for their employment? These are some important explanations for why at the end they now decided that it's not really worth it going to school. And also because of countries that experience high unemployment rates, like Finland is one of those countries, what they do normally is the educational system becomes extended so that it takes a longer time for the young ones to leave the educational system before they move into the employment market. And this works really for the Finnish kids, because then, depending on the kind of, especially depending on their socioeconomic background, they can actually take a longer time to slowly get into the workforce. And so they go through the basic primary school, they go through Lukio, they go through university, get the first degree. And by the time they are coming out, most of them have the master's degree and they are experts in their field. But this takes quite a long time, right? Why for the immigrant youths, for them, they just want to be able to make have income faster than spending such a long time in school. So this also affects the reason why their performance is not so good at the end during that stage when they are moving into adulthood. And for those, like I explained, that starts out of school, you find that if you, depending on the kids you have at 14 or 15, when they become more aware of social issues, some of them begin to identify with either the vulnerable, they identify with the oppressed, they identify with other immigrants and those that are being discriminated against, and they identify with issues of inclusion. And when they take a stance like towards this, they can become more deviant in school because they construct their identity as others. And from that position, they become more deviant to authority because they feel things are not going on right, and they feel the pressure to get things, to start working towards how they can change things. And these are the kind of students that easily sass out of school, because it's not that they are not intelligent, not that they don't love school or they don't have aspiration, but they just could not work and cope with the institution which they have already identified as creating the situation of the others. The other explanation they have for the reason why immigrant youth don't perform so well during the upper stages of their education is aspiration. And the problem is the issue of idealistic aspiration versus realistic aspiration. Now, idealistic aspiration is the one that it takes into consideration. It does not take into consideration practical constraints. It's a reflection of just like wishes. It's influenced by probably the parents and also by the social environment. While we have the realistic aspiration, which considers like practical constraints and look like, okay, what can this person actually do? What are they good at? And that is a rational assessment of costs and benefits of possible actions. But the problem with the aspiration, either idealistic or realistic, is I could explain it in this way. One, like it influences the choice, educational choices. For example, if we look at idealistics, a child, or depending the parents or the child, can decide that they want to become an engineer, for example. And then if the educational structure is created in a way that when the child gets to LUCIO, to upper school, secondary school, the child can choose that, okay, because I desire to be an engineer, I want to do physics, chemistry, and biology. The child have a power to choose to do that, irrespective of the grades that the child is doing in that, the child is having in those courses. Now, if the child have that opportunity to choose, then probably most, excuse me, immigrant kids will, they will choose, they will go to school, they could say, okay, this is what we want to become, and they can pursue that profession, right? Whatever they aspire to be. But there is another side to that. And the other side to that, this idealistic aspiration, is that if they get to universities and they chose to pursue the profession that they desire, they might become overburdened, because by the higher they get, the more difficult the subjects become. And then they could also drop out from school. So even though they have higher aspiration, they've gotten into a profession they want to get into, they could still drop out from school because they are not able to meet up with the requirements. Now, there is the opposite of that. Yeah, the last one. After this, we're going to get
we're running out of time soon.
Okay, this is the last one now. And then now, the realistic aspiration then is when, for example, they are counseled that, okay, you're not doing very well in maths or English or science, chemistry, so you cannot go and do medicine in school, even though that is what you desire and that is what your parents desire. And that becomes a problem also, because then the parents and the students, they may feel that their children is not being given the opportunity to pursue the profession that they want to pursue. Okay, and this is the last one. You could just respond to this, Paul, and then after Percy, when it gets to discussion, after Percy's parts, then we can discuss this. And the question is really, what will you prefer for your child? Idealistic, so he pursues what he or she wants to study and faces the hard work later on, or realistic, that would be based on the grades that the child is having in school. And then Essie can come in.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Sorry, I'm in a very dark room, and unfortunately I cannot change the lighting right now.
No worries, we can hear you.
Yeah, so as long as you can hear me, then
sharing my screen.
Okay, as long as you can hear me, then I think that's fine. Next time you can see me better. Okay. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
It is visible. Yes.
There we go.
Is it on the, okay. All right. So I will move straight to the helpful intervention. And I'll also start with just asking a simple question to make your brains work, which is the fourth poll here. If you could share the poll from your side, Gwen, it would be helpful.
Yes, it's on.
It is now up, yes.
Yeah, all right. Okay, yeah, here we go.
We have the results.
Okay, interesting. It's equally divided between students, teachers, and parents, and then the society gets the least percentage. Oh, all right. So I'll stick to the opinions that you have until we finish with what we have. So we have information that you all think students, teachers, and parents equally are responsible for ensuring that the students succeed in the academics. Okay, I don't want to disappoint you, but I will stick to one subject because of time. So today we'll talk about the, I need to end the poll first before I can move to the next slide. We'll talk about parents. Okay, so the school provides the information and skills, and that's why you say, you think parents, teachers are also responsible, but the parents are the experts of their children. So they know what their children want, they know how they behave. So that means they are the ones who are responsible for imparting values. And education is ongoing, and much learning continues even out of school. So teachers will stimulate the child's interest in various subjects and probably make learning simpler so that each student with their different abilities, the teachers are able to assess that, can be able to learn at their own pace. But it is the responsibility of the parents to motivate those students or their children to retain the knowledge that the teacher is imparting in them. And it's also the responsibility of the parents to make sure that the children are using the knowledge that they acquire suitably. So that is the reason why I think parents play a very key role in their children's academic performance. And we have the benefits here that you'll see that they spend more time on academic learning. If you get the parent involved, then there'll be more time in academic learning because it's both in school and home, so it's continuous. And then because parents will better understand, they have better understanding of their children, and they will know where they struggle more, and it's not just about hearing from the teacher. And the participation also, and I think there are more benefits that probably you could write on the chat as we move on. Next, so I will focus on these 7 attitudes on how parents can go about ensuring that their kids' performance in school are better. And we are getting to know the expectation versus the aspiration versus the expectation, or the aspiration versus the results. So we'll focus on attitude, role models, exposure, learning, supporting learning opportunities, and then parents need to be present in time, making use of mentorship, and then finally the parent taking charge. So if you could help me with the second poll on attitude. It doesn't matter which age your child is. Yeah, let's just see what you view. What is your impression? Do you think they're smart? Okay. Is the poll over?
Yes.
Here we
I
are.
see the result. Yes.
All right. Okay. So yeah, there's a huge percentage of you who think school is enjoyable. That is very nice. Great attitude. And slightly more than half think their children are average. Now you'll know why these will affect the child. So usually parents, you don't realize the fact that a problem in the child education are as a result of the attitude to both the way you view your child and the way you view the school. So at times we could think about talking to each other. So you are in a meeting, or you have a friend coming over, and a fellow adult, and you talk to each other, and you notice the statements or the jokes you can make can be remembered by the children. So there are some other people who speak out their mind about educational process in front of their children, and they feel there is nothing wrong about that. But such minor viewpoints can lead to hatred and absence of desire to attend school. That's why it's important to know that the words that you speak can hinder education, and be able to avoid, especially if it's negative statement in the presence of a child. Now, we'll find we are discussing items like teachers from the negative point of view. Remember, that is your child's teacher. The child is listening, so they are going to have that point of view throughout their education. And remember, in Finland, here you have one study teacher the rest of the time. So you move with the same teacher all the way, at least for the compulsory time until the end. So you've already created a negative impact on the child. Then most of the time, you won't notice you are emphasizing maybe a teacher's mistake. The child is there. You allow a child to skip school, admitting pointless evidence. The child is also there listening. You accept a child's complaint about school without even effort to convince them of an opposite viewpoint. Or sometimes you probably pay no attention to a child, or you start blaming the child failures on the teacher. So you're like, yeah, my child is good enough. It's the teacher who is the problem. And of course, that is another negative attitude. So the utmost support of the child without a desire to learn real fact also gets to a problem. And then just you might say inappropriate statements about the school in the presence of the child. All these things can change the attitude of a child towards school. And if that happens, then the academic success of the child will probably get worse. So make sure that you start controlling your behavior to reflect exactly what you expect from your child. And one way to do that is to show that you enjoy education and learning. If you make it seem interesting and enjoyable, then your child is more likely to have positive attitude towards school. And then the other point was on role models. So students are very young and they are still learning in life. There are so many things they are getting to get into their head. So they are impressionable and they will copy things that attract and impress them. Therefore, they need to have good role models in life so that they can emulate them. Role models are generally people will influence others by serving as good examples. They are often admired by people who emulate them through their perceived personality. So there is personality, there is the qualities, behavior, or achievement. They can inspire others to strive. So a role model is important in your child's life because they motivate them. Most role models have seen the worst in life and they have emerged from worse situations. Now, students can take motivation from such kind of people and know that they can also emerge from any bad situation to succeed. And then career path, a student can choose a role model according to their desired career path. So if that is the case, then it means they already have someone they can follow. They can try to make career in the same way. And instead of wasting time to try different things, already they have someone who's been there before them. So they avoid the trial and error thing. And role models are like an aim. Students can stay focused on them and their career. So it's quite easy for students to lose focus as many things are happening in their life. But if you have someone who is a guide to them, then there is one focal point that they are on. And if a student has a good model, who is also a good human being, it will be of good, profound character. Okay, it will make a good impression and also have a great influence in their own personal life, like the persona and their character. And for skill development, role models are also quite important. You can take an example of a successful businessman. So it's highly likely that a student will also show an interest in the business world and will try to learn how to go about it. So any of people who can provide those 5 things then are likely to be good models for their kids. Now, as parents, it's impossible not to model because you spend a lot of time with your children. And the children will see your example, whether it's positive or negative, as a pattern for the way of their life or the way they live. There is common sense, simple observation, and also psychological research which shows that these down-home adages and the example of the sayings that I've given there, I don't know whether you'll say it's true or false. They are passed down. So children often grow up to mimic the behavior or the beliefs or the attitudes of their parents. And also that's why I said attitude is quite important. Now, depending on what you do or you do not do, you can either be a very important protector factor for your child or a very powerful risk factor as a child. Now, you can consider, for example, on the very powerful risk factor, if a parent smokes, I'll use that example, smokes throughout in the presence of a child, the child is likely to smoke because they see it as a way of life. If they are abusing alcohol or drugs, their children are most likely to follow the same. If they're in an abusive kind of relationship or marriage, it normally, it's researched and also evident that children will grow up either to be abused themselves but by their partners later on in life, or they will grow up to be abusive. And on the flip side, those who are protective factor, you'll see that if I will, for example, use the career, multiple generation of the same family enter into the same profession. So you'll say, my grandfather was probably a lawyer and then someone becomes a lawyer at some point. Then children whose parents have healthy way of living most likely will also be, my mother goes to the gym, so the child will often go to the gym, or they will work out together in the house or something. So the children sort of mimic what their parents are doing. Now, there is something called, there's this picture I've put, and I said nurture or nature. So this is how traits are passed on. That's why the parents should try to be very good role models to their children. A part of the explanation for why qualities of parents are often repeated in their offspring is genetic. That's what I'm calling nature. It means it's hereditary. There's a research that shows that if your parent, or you have someone who is alcoholic in your lineage somewhere, the tendency of you becoming alcoholic is quite high. So that is one of the examples, as opposed to someone who have no evidence of alcoholism in their family. Then you go drinking together, they might drink 2 beers and that is it. And this other person who has alcoholic history, most likely 1 beer makes them stick to it, and it's a continuous fact. So that is nature. But there is also another part of explanation which lies in the impact of environment, which is very key. So the environment where the child is raised, that is the nurture. Now, the answer to these old adages where like father like son mostly lays in the nature. That is in the nurture, not nature, in the nurture. And here is where a parent can easily change the facts. So you influence the environment where your child is staying. So the kind of emotional environment you establish in the home, the child railing style, for example, that you are using, it has a mighty influence on the child's development. And this is also where the attitude comes in. So it only means that if you want to be a role model, it doesn't matter what you did in the past, but what are you aspiring to be? So the only requirement that you need to have is that you should be able to inspire that child of yours. You should be able to make them see that, yeah, you can become better. You can become better than me, and you can become an expert in a certain field. So how do you go about changing the environment in which they stay? You need to be positive. Okay, so it requires some effort. It requires some forethought. It requires self-control for you to be able to achieve this role model aspect, because your children are really watching all the time. They're looking at your actions. They're looking at your beliefs. What are you saying? How are you reacting to issues? They're always watching. So being aware of this huge responsibility, and you're always knowing someone is watching, then it will encourage you to become better yourself. For example, if you don't want your child to smoke, then try to quit smoking if you're a smoker yourself, or make sure you are in a place where the child is not there. If you want your child to stop lying, for example, and feigning sickness to avoid school, then please don't feign sickness yourself, or say I'm feeling sick, and you avoid going to work and they're watching. So do that, walk the talk, and also preach. What is it said? You drink what you preach. Okay, and if you can't be the role model yourself, you can always get role models from other places. For instance, teachers, coaches, club leaders, or member of the clergy, for those who go to church, can be good role models. Older siblings or cousins, you can get them from there. Peer groups also can be role models to your children. Okay, there's a lot I can say about role models, but because of time, we will move to the next thing, which is exposure.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're actually really running out of time. It's 3 to 6.
All right. Okay.
Unfortunately, if we want to take at least one question, I'm afraid you have to wrap it up.
Okay. All right. I suppose this information will be given, right, to the audience at some point, so they will get these.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So for the exposure, it's just all about getting your children to different exposing them to professional careers, so that they can get a feel of what it is to be there. It has an improvement. It shows improvement in academic performance and other advantages. Then this is very key, the support in learning opportunities. There are a lot of links here that I've given that you can get. which will help you maneuver about the careers, for example, for immigrants. Some of them, we have the job shadowing and all those things can be found here. And then there was this poll. I don't know if we have any time to take. There are too many questions, probably no, but simply means you need to be present in time, know what your kid is doing all the time, whether at home or school, and be a participant in their activities, which is encouraging to the kid. And then mentorship is also another key aspect. And here I was hoping that maybe Crystal will talk a little bit about YEP, but I don't know because of time, if it's possible. YEP
No, just go ahead, I think.
Yeah, okay, yeah, YEP is one of the mentorship channel that we have for the immigrants that is in Think Africa. It's already existing. More information can be gotten from that link. And then finally, as parents, we just need to take charge, find time, be interested and involve your kids, be involved in your kids' learning and growth. And research says if you play an important role in setting expectations and making connections between the child's current behavior and future goal, then definitely you're going to achieve the best. And I think this will be the last slide. Sorry, I had to rush you through because of time. Okay, any questions?
Thank you very much. There is so much to discuss. We would need like so much more time. It's already like, but if you're okay to hold on for maybe a few more minutes, there was one question from Alisa. What about the institutional learning support for pupils with migrant background? At elementary level, it seems pretty well developed, but I don't know what it looks like later on. So can you say something about that?
Crystal, would you like to take the question?
Yeah, I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think later on, the support is very good for the earlier education, and you could see that also in the performance of the students. And also somebody wrote, yeah, it's true that more recently the government has already extended compulsory education to Lukio, to higher school. So there will be more structures to support higher school from what they have now. But for now, there are some institutions you could go to where they give help for students that needs help in higher institutions. So there are different organizations. Some of the links we already provided in this PowerPoint. So when you get the slides, you can find some links to some organizations that provide some kind of support. And within school, there are also tutoring supports, mostly tutoring, and then a counselor. So we advise if your kids get to the higher level, it's good that they get engaged in other institutions outside the school system for now to support their attitude and also support their aspiration outside their grades outside tutoring. Yeah.
Thank you, Crystal. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Somebody's commenting that they need help in transitioning from elementary school to junior high and upper.
Yeah, and that is why you should work with, try to work with association. Get your kids into, for example, the mentoring program. Get your kids into their other programs, like the science basement is also there, that try to introduce students to different type of, for example, science subjects. So it's not just doctor or engineering. You don't need to know maths. There's also some other subjects you could do. YEP is a mentoring program that exposes your kids to other professions and other adults that could also support the transition. The point is to build abilities and skills in your kids that is not just about their grades, but like resilience, competitiveness. They are more exposed to know other aspects of life outside Finland. So you support them in this way. Yes, in their summer internship, Moni Eli also provides some kind of information sessions for parents that their kids need support. you could see these links. Try to get your kids involved in outside school program. It will support them to transition.
All right, I think now we are at the end of our session. Thank you, our speakers, Crystal and Bessie. It's very interesting. Unfortunately, 1 hour is not enough, as Gwen said. Well, we encourage the participants to contact you in case they have any more questions, or of course also Gwen and I and the International Working Women of Finland. So thank you again, and see you next week for another webinar.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for
you.
speaker
Thank
and
you.
for all our participants. And yes, we would have needed much more time, but so interesting a topic. So have a good evening, everybody, and see you to an upcoming event. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody.